hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for this new edition of MACAAL Online. We're really happy to start the new season of our online programming with this wonderful panel featuring Meryem Sebti from the magazine Diptyk, and Yvette Mutumba and Julia Grosse from Contemporary End, an amazing platform, and they recently launched Contemporary End South America, actually. And we have Bukola Oyebode. I'm sorry, Bukola. Sorry for my French. And Bukola from the wonderful platform TSA Contemporary. And yes, and today, and we have Helen Jennings from Nataal, and she's also a journalist. She will be moderating this wonderful panel that will be addressing all the challenges and success, because it's not only about challenges, but also what you achieve as a very niche media, actually. So today we'll be discussing the challenges you have and you face in your field. So I'm Janine Gael-Judy, Exhibition Director at MACAAL, for those who don't know me yet. And now we're going to jump into the conversation, and I will let Helen introduce the panelists, and here we go. Thank you.
Hey, hi, thank you, Janine. So I'm Helen Jennings. I'm from a London-based platform called Nataal. We celebrate global African creativity with a focus on fashion, photography, visual arts, and music. We have the online platform and an annual magazine. And we also do, well, in happier times, did events and parties and talks and exhibitions. So today's topic, media and sustainability, how to survive in a time of crisis. So just to set the scene a little bit, obviously independent publishing is tough at the best of times. You're creating a platform very much driven by passion rather than commerciality and, you know, making lots of bottom line. As everyone knows, print publishing is becoming increasingly difficult. You've got reduced advertising revenue. You've got increasing move to digital spaces, rising costs of physical production. And obviously every brand and every person and every platform is putting out their content now. But I think we'd all agree that there's still very much an audience for quality niche publications with a distinct point of view, especially those highlighting underrepresented voices. So this year's situation has not been easy on anyone, and not been easy on the media that covers the art world. Obviously, there's been a huge rift in the culture, several months of everything being halted, and now everyone trying to find their way through. If you're doing physical media, I mean, how do you do a photo shoot? How do you interview someone face to face? How do you print? How do you distribute? The shops are closed, loss of sales. Many publications, as we know, of different types have folded. But I think, in a way, in the independent sphere, we're in a better position, because you don't have big staff, big offices to maintain. You can be more agile, and think on your feet a little bit more. And alongside the pandemic, obviously this year's seen global shockwaves caused by the Black Lives Matter protests and conversations. Everyone's been very, very deeply affected personally and professionally. We've had figures and publishers being called up to do better, but also on platforms such as ours, it's very much a time to have important conversations. And now more than ever, we can be a vehicle for change. So this leads us on to where all you ladies have found it. It'd be great to hear from each of you about yourselves, about your publications, and how you've found this year. So who wants to kick off?
We can start. Like in school, right? Who wants to do the protocol? Hello, yeah, this is Yvette and Julia. Thanks so much for the invitation to be part of this evening webinar to talk about our shared experiences from this crazy year. And just quickly putting C-End and C-End America Latina into a context. We launched, first of all, Contemporary End in 2013, and America Latina, C-End America Latina came later in 2018, always with the idea to create platforms focusing on contemporary art from Africa and the global diaspora, or in the case of contemporary and America Latina, Latin America and the Caribbean in relation to Africa and the global diaspora. So this has always been, let's say, a starting point. Of course, we define ourselves in the widest sense as a niche magazine or platform, but on the other hand, looking back now after 7 years, it doesn't feel like a niche anymore, because the end is consumed or read by a global readership, literally from all over the globe. You know, the main readerships or the readers are in the US, for example, have been ever since, but as well in France, in Nigeria, in South Africa, in Brazil, etc. The main idea has always been to be a digital and online magazine for many reasons. First of all, the idea of accessibility is key to us. It's the bottom line on many levels. Obviously, one important thing is to be an online magazine in order to be able to be consumed or read by anyone, literally all over the place, without any paywalls, which makes us very happy. CN and CNRL have always been free, the contents. Another thing is that we have a print issue, but this comes out twice a year. It's for free as well. But for us, it has always been, as I said, important that, you know, a young student in Addis Ababa can read our content, as well as, I don't know, an artist in Cairo, in New York, or in Berlin, without any distribution limitations. So this is something we have always find super important, and that obviously plays a role now as well.
Yeah, so maybe just to quickly add that, in a way, thinking around the crisis, we realized more than ever, I think, how important that was, that we have this digital platform and that we kind of had this routine already of thinking around how we can create content that is also written in a way that's online accessible and so on, and also in a way how we work with our networks, because basically it's not us who write the text, but we work with a big network of writers who live all over the place. So it has been also always this kind of also challenge, of course, to communicate in a way that you don't need physically. And I think this was for us, in a way, a good test now to see under these conditions how you can actually push these limits and maybe even more if you like have to be on this strictly digital level, maybe. And I don't know, maybe the others want to go first. I mean, we can also later give maybe some examples of things that we try to do newly during the whole moment, let's say, but maybe the others want to go first also.
Meryem, shall I go on?
Yeah, please.
Okay. First, I want to say thank you to MACAAL for making this conversation possible. I think it's your way of saying that art writings, art magazines, and publications are still very relevant. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. I'm Bukola Oyebode. I'm editor-in-chief at TSA Art Magazine. TSA Art Magazine started in 2015. It used to be a blog, and in 2018, it remodeled to become a magazine, because we saw that what I was doing as a blog was very important, and it could expand to become a magazine, because well, there's a lot of work to be done. There was, I think, contemporary and at the time, and Art Africa was already existing, but still they were not enough to cover the entire continent and the diaspora. So I thought, okay, well, this is your own work for you. Get in and pull on your shoes and get going. Okay, so TSA became a magazine in 2018, and we focus on African art on the continent, or art coming from the continent and the African diaspora. We also have other editorial interests, but that is always subject to who, where, and what. How has this year impacted what we do? I would say not in very outstanding ways, because TSA has always run virtually. The digital space has always been our workspace, has always been our home. We have always had meetings and run the work from the internet. So this feels like isolation is, I think, almost natural to us. What has changed, though, is the content that we put out. So while we have been dependent on the Art World calendar, events, announcing events, reviewing events, talking about events and the people involved in organizing, our content shifted from publishing about these things, from art objects and events, to publishing about people, particularly the artists. The artists became the focus of what we have been doing since March, when the lockdown went in full swing. Aside what we, in general, TSA Magazine is a digital platform. It also publishes special prints. So far, we have published 2 special prints, and we were supposed to publish this year as well. So I can say actually that the pandemic and the lockdown and the whole crisis of 2018 has affected our 2020 print publication. And I think that's just it in a nutshell.
Mm.
Okay, Meryem.
I believe it's my turn. I'm sorry, I'm afraid I'm not as fluent in English as you are, all of you. And I didn't maybe experiment my English for like maybe several months. Last one was in MACAAL in the boot camp. Anyway, so I am Meryem Sebti, and I created Diptyk Magazine in 2009. And the idea at this time was really to, and it's a bi-monthly French language magazine. The idea at this time was to maybe really create a Moroccan magazine. I don't think the idea at the very beginning was to talk about international art, but we felt at this time that we really needed to be part of a renaissance of contemporary art in Morocco. So we created this magazine, and all of a sudden, second issue, we realized that there was a huge necessity to be part of this new conversation between Moroccan artists and artists from the diaspora. So very quickly, the project took shape of an international magazine, trying to really settle the identity of contemporary Moroccan art within a bigger identity that was at the same time Mediterranean, European, Arabic, Maghrebian, and of course African. So now, maybe like 11 years later, we are completely aware that we have to describe what's happening in our country from, of course, a Moroccan point of view, but we deal with all subjects, artistic subjects, from the Moroccan point of view. So I think what is interesting in Diptyk is that we maybe we are the magazine of a generation of artists. Some of them are attending the talks, so I will be very happy to hear them in the Q&A maybe later. Mbark Bouchchichi is with us, as well as Hisham Gardaf. So we tried with our small means to comment dire, accompagner. Janine, si tu peux m'aider, on a essayé d'accompagner cet élan artistique. Yeah, exactly. So, of course, from the economic point of view, Diptyk is completely part of, I'm afraid to say, a 20th century economic model. So this is a print, bi-monthly magazine relying on the advertisements. So for several years, it was our way of functioning. We are part of an artistic calendar. Ad pages come from big societies, Moroccan societies, banks, and important companies, Moroccan companies, who want to support a magazine that will address people who are interested in contemporary art, so collectors, etc. So this was the economic model. But now with the lockdown, we had to, so we had, of course, at the same time, we had a website, but the website came after the print for several years. So we had the print bi-monthly, and the website was like comment on peut dire, une réserve de sujets. It was like a dead end for our contents, but it worked like this, and it was okay. But now with the lockdown, I realized that I had like 2 months of completely nothing. I have to, because I realized that it would last, of course, and that I had to take advantage of this problem to maybe challenge my team and tell them that we had to work in another way. What is Diptyk after all? It's not just a magazine, it's a team who can travel, who is in Paris, in Morocco, in Dakar, in Lebanon, in Beirut, and who can write contents, and not especially for the print. So we completely we shifted into a digital media. We didn't print for like now 6 months. Since February, we didn't print. And now the team writes subjects. It gave them more freedom to write, maybe quickly, really to maybe attend an exhibition and write a review for the next day. So it gives us very much freedom to address our audience in another way, maybe more quickly, more easily. With more images, maybe we can add videos. We really have the opportunity. It's a terrible problem from the economic point of view, but we have to try and really put the economic problem aside just for several months, if we can survive, of course, and take advantage of this situation to really, for me, it's the opportunity to write many more on many countries. I didn't have I wasn't used to go, like maybe Lagos. We almost maybe wrote 2 or 3 subjects about Lagos. Now, if I can find a writer who is in Lagos, he can write from Lagos and give me a paper. It can be published in our website the day after. So it's a huge opportunity to cover the whole continent. And also maybe for us to shift into English, to bilingual, because French is really, maybe gives us the opportunity to reach a very narrow audience, and we have to reach all the English language Africa. It's a whole, maybe a big half of Africa, of course. So for me, I consider, of course, I considered quitting, because now I don't have any, maybe I won't have any ad pages for the future. I don't know how I'm going to really survive. From my point of view, I think it's really going to be difficult. But if I can find a way to reach my audience from my website, I think it will be maybe a success. I don't know.
No, you first.
No, I just wanted to add something which we didn't say before, picking up on 2 things that you both said, like audience, and also what you said, Bukola, about working in isolation when you do digital work. I think what was really interesting for us also to see during the lockdown phase, how the readership behavior changed, which is a nice thing about digital platforms. It's a bit creepy because you kind of can follow up what everyone does, how much time they spend on the website and things like that. But you could really see that people would actually spend more time, in the sense of, usually maybe people would be more like clicking through, staying like with 1-2 things for longer, and now like really getting into the content much more deeper. So I guess because they were more at home and things, but it seems also like that maybe also readers shifted their habits a bit, because it's not something that really bounced back now that things, at least in certain areas, have been more open again. So I think this was for us also really good to see that the content is like also maybe appreciated in a different way. And we could also see it with, for example, what we did as a new series. We had it before, but we did it more intensely. It's this kind of installation shots of exhibitions, And so we did that during the lockdown phase with a lot of exhibitions that had to close down. And so they would send us the images and installation views. And so you could really see, of course, people got really, you know, hungry for that kind of thing because, you know, you couldn't go anywhere. And so I think this is talking about the digital aspect, like really an advantage also to kind of go into a dialogue with your readers, and then you can also respond to what they maybe need or are like interested in. So
yes, it's an opportunity.
I wanted to ask Meryem, does Diptyk, does it cost something, the magazine? Yes, huh?
So when it was a print magazine, of course, it was sold in bookshops, and it cost like $10. Now, when we had the lockdown, we decided to publish a PDF version of the summer issue, and it was free on our website, free to download. And now, from now, I decided to publish maybe on a monthly basis, a PDF monthly that will be free, of course. I'm not thinking of putting a PDF on sale. It's a difficult. Anyway, I'm not ready to do that.
And did you think about shifting your advertisement partners to your website?
Yes, of course. So now what I'm doing, because as I said in introduction, what is important and what I realized when I took this month of thinking is that really Diptyk is a Moroccan project. It's really a Moroccan magazine. All my partners are Moroccan. And I think that from their point of view, all of my partners, banks like Groupe OCP, Fondation Nationale des Musées, Fondation CDG, they are all Moroccan partners who have something in art. Either they have collections, or they have an art space, or they support artists. Anyway, they are involved into art somehow. And so when I decided to shift into a PDF, they still gave me their art pages. But I hope it's not just because it was the lockdown and they had the they had an engagement with Diptyk. But I hope that this model can be sustainable. I'm not sure it can last forever, but I hope so. I hope so anyway. But I think that what is interesting when you go into digital is to also, you can go into newsletters, you can address different audiences in different ways. Of course, we are not all of us specialists of digital marketing. Maybe we will have to, in a way, we will have to put in our teams young people who are completely into digital marketing, because we will have to go there. But anyway, digital is huge opportunities maybe to reach new audiences, but it also gives us the responsibility to maybe write about art in another way, maybe more specialist for this audience, less specialist for this audience, some papers about just how to buy art, how to start a collection, why do we need art? These are maybe subjects I never had the idea to write about when we had this print magazine, because we were already into art with people who are working in art. We never ask ourselves, why is art important? This is not a question that we ask when we are among people who work into art. But when you address a larger audience, these are sort of questions you may ask. Why is art important in public space? Very simple questions that can, of course, be.
I would like to, sorry to cut you, Meryem. I would like to speak more on the behavioral changes in audience, or the changes in the behavior of the audience at the time of early days of the lockdown. For example, we had to shift from publishing about art objects and events to publishing about artists. We decided to put artists at the core of what we were doing at the time. And what we noticed was that people were actually interested in the lives and experiences of the artists. So, for instance, we started the social solidarity agenda, which featured diary entries by artists, written by artists themselves about their experiences at that point in time. They were sharing things about what they were going through, how they were surviving during the lockdown. And I realized that somehow people want to connect with other humans. They want to be sure that their experiences are not alone. Their experiences are not unique to them. So they are not alone in experiencing what is unfolding in the world. And we went on also to report not just at the artist diaries, but to report how artists are navigating their finances.
Yeah.
Because if there are no exhibitions, if there are no art fairs, how are they surviving, you know? And it was very, it wasn't surprising, but it was good to see the openness from the side of the artist, and also a sort of challenge to the art world, that the art world can no longer run the way it has been running. So the problem doesn't just affect us, this whole how to survive during the crisis doesn't just affect us as art publishers or writers or journalists in the field, but it also affects the artists. How are they surviving? How will they survive? What this model of the art world, is it sustainable? You know?
Yeah.
So the lockdown, the crisis, the black, well, I don't want to go into Black Lives Matter, that's something completely different. But the whole pandemic crisis has completely unfolded or unseated how the art world used to be, to open up conversations that we were not having before. And those conversations started to come to fore in the articles that we've been publishing.
Yes.
And we have our audience engage with that in more interesting ways that they were engaging with just exhibitions and events.
Yeah. Because there, of course, in the previous world, we used to have a very comment dire, un calendrier très serré, a very an art calendar. And when you addressed an artist, it was always because he had an exhibition, the next Biennale de Dakar, and then we knew he was part of the booth in this art fair. So it was always the calendar that gave us the opportunity to. And during the lockdown, we realized that how can we talk about them if there is no calendar? There isn't a calendar anymore. So maybe we should go to the artist and just ask him about the work he has in progress, and why does he work on this subject? How does he work? And can we talk about art without talking about a biennale or an exhibition or an art fair? It's a complicated, it's a tricky exercise. It's a tricky exercise.
But it's possible.
It's interesting.
Yeah, we've been
it's possible. We've been doing this also, and I think you don't need necessarily that occasion, because if you say, like you said, if you focus on the practice and what the artists do, what they want to say, I think this is like really as important or interesting. I mean, I think this is just really straightforward as a format, also like with interviews or things like that, to just really, you know, say, look, this is this person who does this work, and to put it out there, basically. Because also you can think it the other way around, that actually through supporting artists in that way, then they might actually be picked up by a gallery or a curator, because they read about that artist in our publications, right?
And so this has happened.
So it doesn't always have to be that dynamic from coming, the impulse from the institutions or whatever, but it can actually also be that us as the publications give the impulses to those people who then do different kind of work with the artists.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Nataal is very much about emerging and young artists. Most of them, or all stylists or photographers, all the people we work with, none of them, hardly any of them have representation. So,
or an exhibition.
For us, it was good. It was a good opportunity to let their work shine, and we are a platform for them. So we get submissions all day long, and it's very visually led, fashion shoots or visual diaries. So during lockdown, we approached a number of young photographers and some not so young to give us their lockdown diaries, their sort of visual contemplations of what's going on. And that was really lovely. So we had like Cedric Mizero in Rwanda, who shot some of the young boys in his village. we had Francesco and Belle do these absolutely like high-tech, crazy, mucked up selfies, which is really interesting. Anthony Bella in South Africa debuted his film with us, The Isolationist. So it was nice to give people the space to have their moments and, you know, share how they're feeling and have sort of like more intimate approach to the features.
Yeah, what we did as well, because something we've been working on for the last 7 years is to establish an online art space on Contemporary End, and always thought about the idea how to present it, to not make it look like a pseudo gallery, you know, like a constructed space, etc. And this was something we've been thinking about around for a long time, because we wanted to do it right and in a new format and new way. And then suddenly, yeah, maybe before the pandemic or the lockdown, but really strongly through or during the last month, we thought, okay, now is a nice and important time to put out our CN commission area or space on CN more prominently by inviting young artists, collectives to show their work online, which can be video work for the first time, yeah, on Contemporary End or through Contemporary End, can be a video work. We're right now working with a young artist who does sound and animation, for example. So this kind of format was kind of pushed us a little bit more to really work on this and focus on this now. You know, the whole situation and context kind of made us, you know, focus more on this, which is great, because otherwise we maybe would still think around it and think and not doing anything. So that was.
And did you all sort of embrace social media more and think about different ways to, you know, make your, obviously everyone's was obsessed with their feeds during lockdown. Did you guys do anything on there, like, I don't know, Instagram Live or takeovers, or, you know, put energy into that side of things?
Yeah, takeovers we did. We did takeovers with artists, or we did a takeover for a museum, for example. So this kind of things.
Like MACAAL.
Yeah, like MACAAL.
Like MACAAL takeover.
Yes. Yeah. We did obviously not on CN's Instagram, but we were involved in many webinars on Instagram, for example, and this kind of things, you know. This is what we're doing right now. We have the feeling that we're doing this once a week right now, which is tricky as well, because you kind of, you know, you're so available now because you just sit, you know, on your sofa and you know, and institutions can invite you, and you know, you can't say, oh, I can't, and they say like, of course you can, you're at home. So this is. You know, you have to.
It's the end of the lying era. We can't lie.
You have to cut it down and say, okay, only one webinar per week. So otherwise, it's just it's getting too much in a way, because we're so available now through all these different channels, and so. But yeah, we experienced people, yeah, really consume, I think, our contents even more.
But it's also a tricky thing, because obviously everyone was now putting on these virtual events. And I can also sense when I talk to people that there's this kind of fatigue now setting in. So like in the beginning, everyone was really excited about having these possibilities to like join from your sofa, or like look at a talk while you're cooking, or all these possibilities. But I can also see that now moving forward, we also as a publication, I mean, we really have to start thinking also to how we can also move beyond these models, because I think it can't stay like this, because it's just too much, or maybe also overwhelming. Yeah. Because you have these easy accessibility. How to actually deal with that, not only from our side as like people that sit on these things, but also for the audience, really.
Yeah, because at the end of this ecosystem, there is the necessity to see the art with your eyes, from our point of view, of course, but also because who puts money into all this ecosystem? It's the collector, and in the end of all this, we really have to think of a way for collectors to reach the work of the artists we support. So Of course, we can still we make our possible to write about art because some of these works we've seen them before, so we can still. But how long? Yeah. We will have to travel again and see art with our eyes. So maybe we will, all of us, be more aware of all the things that are local for us. For example, this week in Morocco, we have the return of some exhibitions. An exhibition in Rabat about Harbawi, who is a modern Moroccan artist. But so we will have to return to the museums, to the galleries, and we really have to maybe be the first ones to address our audience and to tell them that it's still possible to go and see some things. I don't know exactly what will be the new rhythm of all this, but anyway.
I mean, for me, to build on what Yvette was saying, the digital space or the social media space became too overwhelming, so it was not necessary to add to all the events that were already going on. We did not organize takeovers. What we surely did, we had the Social Solidarity series. We also had the Resistance and Revolution series when the whole Black Lives Matter protest started. But that is not where I'm going. I mean, I remember reading something that Jerry Saltz wrote at the beginning of the lockdown when the internet became like went into a frenzy and everyone was publishing and sharing and doing all sorts of things. And he said, so will publications be able to pay their writers staff benefits and their overheads? Blogs and smaller art organizations and littler galleries share some of the DNA of auctions and have smaller footprints. But let me quickly speed up. Right now, blogs and galleries are posting a steady stream of listicles, art that can be seen online, trying to organize online viewing rooms and other things to do in seclusion. These things keep spirits necessarily high, but they bring in almost no money. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we were already struggling. So why compound the situation where we do not have funding for TSA is not funded by any NGO. It's a lot of self-funding going into TSA. We do receive advertising, but that's not enough to sustain the platform. So imagine that at a time when things already became difficult, the economic fallout was already very heavy on us. Then we started to produce materials that no one is paying for, you know. Mm-hmm. So it was exciting to get into the digital space, and I have to say, I think organizers, institutions, curators became sort of like competitors, you know. So it was not the best of times. It was the best of times, and it was not the best of times. So we had to be strategic in how we responded to events at that time.
You mean like competitors, the museums, because
because they were sharing practically everything. They became like the go-to to see what is exciting, to see the art. They started putting up hashtag competitions, share, stay at home with art, or I can't remember the exact hashtag right now, but it became like they became competitors in a way that if you were a publisher, you would see all your content being put out there by the people who you are supposed to be sending them to you, you know. So I think that was in itself, that in itself made us to ask ourselves, are we still relevant, you know? And if we are relevant, how are we relevant? And I started to ask the question, you know, in journalism, they would say content is king. Is content still king? You know, maybe who is visible that is king. Maybe it is the medium that is king and not the content anymore. And because of this, we started to rethink how we can do journalism on TSA, how we can do writing and reporting and examining art on TSA onward.
I think
that's a very good question.
Yeah, content is still key for us at Contemporary End. Obviously, we had, for example, the exhibition series, installation shots, where, you know, people could look through the closed exhibitions, but still the bottom line is that we try to translate, you know, complex topics around contemporary art into accessible formats, into, you know, readable texts. And, you know, this is our kind of art criticism, art critique, what we're doing there. And if this is not longer, let's say, relevant, I think we all have a problem, not we, the artwork, you know, because art is still being produced. And if there's no context or no art critic to put it into context, you know, I think it's really,
yeah, but I mean, at the time of the crisis, people were not exactly looking for criticism, you know? They were looking for other kind of things to sustain their spirit. It was much more like the superficial things. So at that point in time, it was almost not, the consumption of criticism became very low. It was much more the consumption of art.
Yeah, of course. Because at this time, maybe during the lockdown, art became a part of the entertainment, and you, I think, the large audience ate art content, very, very superficial art content, exactly on the same level as memes and music videos, funny things, cat videos, etc. It was exactly the same. And we, maybe when you say that content is our real comment dire, c'est notre métier. Our work is to build a high level content, and we have to stay on this, of course, on this level. And of course, museums, they had to maybe entertain their audience with find the cat in the, find the dog, and how can you picture yourself in this Edward Hopper situation? Well, this was nice because it's it gives the audience maybe a sense of no, I don't think really it's not the way we should be doing things, of course. Of course.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. We have to resist. We have to resist this temptation to go there. But and it's easy to go for us. We all have a mine of content that we could use this way. But
but same, I think same for the artists, because I think they weren't interested in, you know, diving into this bubble of entertainment as well, because they had serious problems. They were, you know, many of them were, you know, not questioning their art production, but really asking themselves, where am I in this situation? Where, you know, how do I define myself as an artist, etc. And so I think there has been a lot of critical thinking in the context or within the artists context as well, I think. So it's
yes,
as you say, the museums needed to put out a more entertaining program in order to draw in, you know, new audiences, etc. But
of course.
I think that doesn't apply to most of the artists who really had, you know, other issues to think about. Yeah, it's very complex. We didn't even speak about Black Lives Matter. You know,
that's another whole debate, I suppose. But I'd say we're not in the entertainment phase now. The conversation is very different now. You know, no one's putting, you know, you get shot down for putting a silly meme on social media now. So, you know, I know we're running out of time, but if anyone want to share anything on how you maybe you've been approached differently, or your audiences have changed, or institutions are engaging with you differently in light of Black Lives Matter.
I mean, I think in I guess that goes for all of us. In our case, it's I think the sort of attention from, let's say, European institutions or like, sorry, you know, wide-run institutions has been much more intense. I mean, there was always this tendency that we would get these emails, yeah, you want to do a show about Africa, can you name five artists, you know, that kind of stuff. So, but this kind of really amplified now in a way that it is problematic in a sense that, I mean, a lot of institutions, at least, I mean, in the European context, were all very quick to put out these solidarity statements with Black Lives Matter and so on. And so it was pretty obvious that they hadn't really dealt with that at all before. And we also made this experience. We had this project in one museum in Cologne, the Museum Ludwig, where we were at the press conference, which was right after this all happened. And then the person who introduced us at the press conference said, yeah, so the museum is really, you know, understanding the pulse of the time, like right now, by inviting CN to do this project. And so we said, well, this is just like an eruption of obviously what has been there for decades and centuries. So it became very clear that there was like a broader non-sensibility towards what this moment actually is and what it means. So that means also that although there is suddenly this more intense attention, that we are very, very cautious with that. And we actually also say no to a lot of things, just because we don't feel like this is something that goes really deeper into certain questions that are related to sustainable structural change and all these things. And so I think it opened up something which is good, to have debates about these things that I just mentioned. I mean, obviously we could have a whole panel only about that. So, but so in that sense, this has changed. But on one hand, maybe it's a positive thing, because in a way of especially also artists and young artists can put much more pressure on certain institutions with, you know, coming with more precise demands and saying, look, you know, you have this kind of policy, but if I do a project with you, you really have to change, or, you know, these kind of things, which maybe before didn't really seem possible. But at the same time, for us, it's also that it puts us in a position where we have to very clearly also say where we stand, and that obviously, like all of us here, have been doing this work for the last years, ever, you know, and so we can't like just go and fix it for other institutions and do their homework. And this is something that we've been also communicating very clearly a lot in the past weeks, just saying that. So yeah, maybe I stop here. It's a long issue. We go on. It's like terrible. So
yeah, we didn't experience any sudden shifts in interest. Our audience has been audience and partners has been primarily Africans, people from the continent, and who are interested in African art. But there are definitely some interest, you know, but it remains to see if people will put their money where their mouth is, especially in 2021 and onward. When 2020 is over, is African art or African lives or Black lives and Black art still of interest to these non-African people who have sudden interest because of Black Lives Matter? I mean, I find it disappointing when I read most of the press statements that came from the institutions, especially when I saw the statement from the editorial at Freeze. I was completely shocked. I said, oh, does this mean that Freeze was not conscious of Black lives and Black experiences prior to this protest? Are you trying to say, with all the arts that you publish, with all the conversations around arts that you publish, having your base in London and all the things that you do, you were not conscious about the experiences of Black people? That was very disappointing. So for me, we are taking like a back burner, because it's exciting to see all this interest, but it's also that it translates into tangible things, meaningful changes for us. It's not about jumping on trends and receiving stipends and petty support. It's about long-term commitments. And we will see that from 2021 onward.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I don't know if Janine, if there was any questions you wanted to bring in.
There's one in the, oh yeah.
There's one question from Medici Friwi, is asking if is there still a point for printing issues in this time of digital world? Is there a future in it?
I'm afraid the question is for me. Alors, it's a tricky question of course, when you address this question, you have two teams always, the paper team and the anti-paper team. I think that, of course, paper for information and for like weekly, just to give information, I think there isn't, it's not in our time anymore. Paper is not for information. Paper is for on va dire, experience, for aesthetic experience. If you really have something to say with the paper, if you have something to say, if you have a dialogue between images and the paper, the objects, the paper and the images, the graphic design, if you really have something to say, if you want to make an art object with this paper, there is still, of course, an intention with paper. And for, as far as I'm concerned, of course, I won't make a bi-monthly Diptyk magazine like I used to do, because I think that this period is not comment dire, it's not suitable for this period. But I'm thinking, of course, of doing a annual wonderful object with nice paper, and ask a graphic designer to take this object and put something personal into it, to draw a conversation between graphic design and contemporary art, because it's the same. Some of our great artists are graphic designers, and then they shift into art, and then they go back to graphic design. It's exactly the same for photographers. Some of them work for the press, and then they have a career in contemporary art. So, of course, lots of artists would have their place in a paper object. Of course, it's I can't imagine a world without paper. But paper under conditions, under condition, incredible, huge, nice, expensive. Yes, but paper, no.
I think also for you, Yvette and Bukola, actually, even although your online platform, online magazine, sometimes you print, you do some printed edition.
Yes.
Yeah, I think for the African art world, or for the world of publishing focused on African art, we cannot but make prints, and we cannot but use the digital space. There are not enough platforms publishing about art from the continent and the diaspora, or the experiences of this region. So we don't have the luxury to say the digital space is only our space, or the print space is only our space. We have to use both media. And what I would say is that there will always be tensions between which is more valid, which is more valuable. Like I said on the MACAAL panel, both are valid, both are valuable. It depends on who is reading, what we are publishing, and what they are looking for, and who is consuming. Both will always find their audience, and both are quite important at this time.
Yeah, it's a bit the same.
What we are doing is the work of archiving, documenting and archiving. So even if they are not very valuable now, they will become valuable later.
That's a good point, because we get approached by libraries now as well. Libraries from, I don't know, from Joburg to Berlin, who started to archive the end, from the first issue 2014 to now. And as you say, this art is for free. It doesn't cost anything, but still, let's say in 10 years or 20 years, that will be an important archive, focusing on discourses around contemporary art from Africa and the diaspora, etc. And we started it, as you say, Janine, with the idea to have an online magazine, but always had this, this little dream, as we are paper fetishists as well. Obviously, we love paper, yes, and always thought, okay, that doesn't exclude, the whole project from having a paper as well. And obviously, it makes sense to, to save costs, to have 1 or 2 issues per year. And the initial idea was to always launch it alongside a big art event, Dakar, Sao Paulo Biennale, Documenta, etc., which always worked out really fine. We sent the issues there. We could, distribute them to local audiences who, otherwise would have never heard of the end. So that was really nice. But this was, the last issue was the first situation where we didn't have an actual event taking place, because there was, there was no Dakar, there was no Biennale at all. So what we did is kind of inviting our readers to send us their addresses so we could send out the printed issue to our readers. The first time we did this in this kind of, you know, this kind of mass of digital events, etc. It was nice to kind of have a physical format, the magazine, to send it out to our readers. So this is the first time we did publish the magazine without distributing it at a, you know, local art event. So we had
distribution is a big problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'd be very sad if there was no print. I mean, Nataal is digital first. That's how we launched. But I mean, I'm old school. I've edited loads of magazines in the past. There's nothing beats a big, lovely, papery, beautiful thing that it's taken you 6 months to make. I mean,
the small one is a lot of
all your love, all your contributors' love goes into it.
Yes.
Our model is annual. It's a great big, you know, coffee table thing when it lands. And sadly, we haven't so far been able to do it this year. But I'm not giving up. That's for sure.
No, not at all. No, it will always be an important add-on. So for us, it's no question that we're going to continue doing this. Let's just see how we're going to distribute it. This is another question. But you know,
I think somebody needs to set up a business that enables the distribution of art publications.
We thought about this too. This is very important.
I don't know. We are putting it out there. Maybe someone is going to run with it.
Yeah. No, because you know, because the biggest joy we experience is when someone sends us a picture from Marrakesh or from Lagos with a print issue lying somewhere on the table. We're like, oh God, this is that makes us happy. This makes us happy. So yeah, it's still a big challenge, but I think we're all working on this.
Yeah.
And to jump on that about you know, having a magazine or your content traveling all around the world, I have because there's no other question, so I have a question for all of you, included Helen actually. Has, you know, like through the pandemic and confinement, people have been swimming in this ocean of information, of content, of online exhibition and everything. So maybe even now, actually, because, you know, in some countries, many museums are still closed, and we all trying we all trying to build something different online. So I have a question for all of you, as journalists and also as art writers. Would you recommend, because in Contemporary you did an amazing survey of your museum shutdown actually. So I would like you to talk about, I mean, at least to advise the people who are watching us today, like one online exhibition to watch and maybe one open museum you advise them to visit.
Looking for 154 in your forum, lady.
About MACAAL, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
One exhibition and one, what was the other thing?
Like a physical exhibition or art fair or museum.
Okay, I would say 154 is opening. We are partners with them. There's also ACA in Paris. And there's, okay, by nature of what I do, I'm running from the top of my head. There's also Zeitz Mocha opening in October. So a lot of spaces are opening up. I think I hijacked other people's points, but yeah.
And what I was talking about, like that ocean of content online. So people don't know anymore, like where to watch or what to see online. So like one exhibition or one platform, a part of yours, a part of the Solo Adventurer, of course, we would advise them to look at, to have like which one touched you more, which exhibition or which platform that managed to really like transform their online presence.
Alors moi, I would to go to the museum. I think you said one online and one physical visit.
Yes.
I think that physical visit, I will recommend Moroccan things because from my point of view, this is what I recommend. So I would recommend to go to Harbawi exhibition at Musée Mohammed VI, which opened just a few days ago. I think it's a very interesting exhibition about a modern artist, and we can go to the museum in real life, so we really should do it. And online exhibition, of course, MACAAL, because you really spent comment on va dire, technical and financial means to really build an interactive visit that works very well. It's very nice. It's well done, and you really show the way how to. Of course, I love to go to MACAAL because it's an incredible place. It's really not a place I would like to visit online, but anyway, there is this online visit, so you really should experiment the online MACAAL visit. It's really, really well done. C'était vraiment bien foutu. Hein. Bien foutu. Bravo, vraiment big up. Ouais.
Thank you for the advertisement.
So ask the question. So.
Exactly.
So I usually try again. One exhibition that is showing online that I would advise or suggest will be a new, New Custodians, an exhibition of 3 young artists by SMO Contemporary. It's online. Mm-hmm. And then one physical show that you can visit will be, for me, another show in London, featuring 4 young artists talking about the diaspora, their experiences in diaspora. The exhibition is called There Nowhere at the End of the World. I think those would be my recommendations.
And we would also recommend, if you still can get out of where you are with the increasing restrictions, to see the Berlin Biennial, which is running right now here in Berlin, which is one of the first of few biennials having set up. And I think they had been building up a program for a year already, and now it's kind of concluding in a bigger show. And I think this is definitely interesting to see, because it's really mainly positions from Latin America, and mainly also indigenous positions and Afro-Latin American positions, going really deeply into a lot of topics that concern all of us as of today. So, and one online project, maybe more, which I really personally like, is which you might have seen, is what happened, what the showroom organized in Florence, which is a project which is not actually just visual arts. It's they invited a filmmaker, and I forgot his name right now, but he comes from jazz. Yeah. So they have, like, showroom has like an artist in residence who's actually a jazz pianist, and then they invited different composers and performers to actually reflect on their experience of the lockdown and turn it into a new jazz piece of a few minutes. And then the pianist will sort of interpret it, and you have it like on Vimeo. So they really also found new ways to use the different platforms. So they're on Vimeo, they're on Instagram, it's on the showroom platform. And for me, it was just like this very nice moment, just, to stop in all these happening online, to have these, pieces of music to just listen to, you know. And of course, you can go deeper because they also have conversations in these more classic formats. But I think that's really worth also.
So the showroom in London, that's from our side.
Very good. Thank you. I will check that too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Helen?
I only have one suggestion. I just went to Goodman in London yesterday, actually got out of the house in the rain. And so they have 3 South African artists there. So Pamela Sandstrom in the main room, which is just beautiful. It was roughly based on self-portraiture and all the work made on wood during lockdowns. It's a beautiful show. And then there was 2 other artists. The names escaped me, but one was a much older artist. Again, all work created during lockdown, sort of painting his own home, but very sort of meta versions of his home. And then a very, very young documentary photographer in the 3rd room, who, because of the lockdown being so fierce in South Africa, he was just shooting out of his window and doing portraits and getting texts, quotes from people and putting those texts in black boxes next to the photos. So it's really beautiful.
Cool. Yeah. Oh.
So thank you very much, and I cannot thank you enough from the bottom of my heart for this insightful intervention of yours, and for the amazing work you do anytime in times of crisis and in normal times, whatever that means actually in normal times, because I think as an institution and as media, especially niche people like us, like, you know, working on the focusing on African artists or diasporic art, which is something we still have to fight to you know, to build a proper and international platform and to make sure it's I mean, it's broadcast and value the same way as all the Western art is. So I know it's a daily battle. So I want to thank you very much for making time to talk about this topic. And for the people who attended this panel today, I thank you very much for have taken 1 hour and something to to listen to us. And make sure to subscribe to our Contemporary End, to the Soul Adventurer, to Nataal, and to Diptyk, to keep in touch with the art world from the African continent, the diaspora, and the world. Thank you, and see you soon, hopefully.
Thank you.